moment of reckoning in which we are all called to raise our righteous voices and to speak out when we see race and racial injustices happening in every area and every corner of our individual lives. And God, I pray that we would use our platform individually to speak with boldness and courage in every aspect. And now, oh God, I ask that you would bless us during our meeting tonight. In the name of Jesus, my Savior, I pray. Amen. Amen. All right, everybody. Again, we're glad that you joined us on tonight. Just for those of you who may not know, Justice and Beyond has been now organizing for the last 9 years, regionally, locally, and even internationally, as we fight against racism on all aspects, whether it be and fight against injustice on all spheres, whether it be criminal injustice, whether it be environmental injustice, juvenile injustice, all of those we believe in fighting against and teaching people how to be anti-racist. As well, also, as we come together, it is important for you to know that Justice and Beyond is not led by one or two people. As our platform for Justice and Beyond and our format, I'll say rather, changed a couple of years ago when we decided that that our organization, or our coalition rather, would be led by a pillar system. That is to say, we have many organizations that have come on board to this coalition to say that they will be a part of the governance and a part of the vision casting and setting and future planning of this organization. They are pillar organizations that are about this group. My name is Reverend Gregory T. Manning. I am the co-moderator for Justice and Beyond, along with Sylvia McKenzie and Myron Miller. So again, welcome everybody. This conversation that, and ordinarily we would introduce everyone on the call, but we're going to skip that for tonight. Just finally want to say that as we meet tonight, it's important for you to know that Justice and Beyond operates by three main pillars, or three main tenets, and that is by respect, love, and peace. And so we ask that as you are in this space on tonight, that we would operate by respect, peace, and love. That means we can disagree. We may not like what other people say, but we never want to come into this space to disrespect. And finally, also to know that Justice and Beyond is dedicated to lifting up the voices of people of color within our community, of brown and black voices. So our discussion tonight, as was advertised, is our forum featuring the DA candidates, the district attorney candidates. As all of you know, this year's elections are very critical in many respects, but as we become very focused on the election of our president, we must also be very focused on the election of our citywide leaders as well too. And the criminal district attorney's office is one of those offices that we need to be very educated about. And so with that said, we are happy to have with us tonight Mr. Arthur Hunter, Ms. Kiva Landrum, Mr. Morris Reed, and Councilman Jason Williams, that we will be asked to answer some questions tonight so that we all will be better educated as we head to the polls. So with that said, with no further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. Myron and Ben, are all of our candidates here?
Yes, they are.
All right. Candidates, welcome. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask each of you to take 90 seconds to introduce yourself. That means say anything that you would like for us to know about your platform as you are in the race. I'll give you 90 seconds to do that. 30 seconds before that 90 seconds is up, you'll hear the following tone. You got a tone for us, Myron? There it is. You will hear that tone 30 seconds before your time is up. And then again, once your time is up. So, and also once we start asking the questions, all of you, I believe, DA candidates have been provided with a list of 7 questions, which you'll be asked to answer 3 of those questions. At the end of our time together of answering those questions at 6:20, we will open it up for the audience to ask questions for themselves. So with that said, we're going to begin tonight in alphabetical order. And so we will begin with Ms. Kiva Landrum. If you would take 90 seconds, Kiva, just to tell us whatever you'd like for us to know about you tonight. Welcome, Kiva.
Thank you. Welcome. Thank you. Hi, good evening. My name is Kiva Landrum, and I am running for District Attorney in New Orleans. I'm a native New Orleanian. I attended Ursuline Academy. I graduated from Washington University in St. Louis, and then came home for Tulane's Law School. Immediately after law school, I went to work in the District Attorney's office, working my way through the ranks of that office, always as a desire to know that I wanted to run for DA, and thought that the best way in order to make change is to learn the system from within. When Eddie Jordan departed the office, decided to leave the district attorney's office, I was asked by local community leaders and business leaders to step up and serve in that capacity. So I became the first female to act in the capacity of a district attorney in the state of Louisiana. And that was immediately following Hurricane Katrina in about 2007. After that, I decided to broaden my experience and run for judge in criminal district court, where I've been for the past 12 years. And I've been able to, as the chief judge, be instrumental on criminal justice reform, instituting a bail reform program, as well as pretrial services and lowering the court's jail population, or the jail's population. That is some of the things that I'd like to focus on as our DA. I want to make sure that there's equity in the system by addressing bail reform, making sure that we look at how the multiple offender statute has been utilized, also prioritizing victims and witnesses and women who have been abused, and making sure that we hold our police officers accountable and build a relationship with our New Orleans community. And that is why I'm running to be our next district attorney.
Andrew, thank you for joining us tonight. We appreciate you being here. Our next candidate up will be Mr. Arthur Hunter. Welcome, Mr. Hunter.
Thank you, Reverend. Appreciate coming for the group. I'm running for district attorney, and this is why. You know, if we want to be a safer city, then we need a district attorney who will hold people accountable for their actions, reduce recidivism, and prosecute cases fairly and ethically without the lawsuits and the drama. You know, I was a criminal court judge for 23 years. And during that time, I was a mental health court judge, reentry court judge, and a veterans treatment court judge. And I created a nationally recognized program that reduced and prevented crime. And there's one thing I learned from that. If you save one person, you can save a family. When you save the family, you save the neighborhood. And when you save the neighborhood, you save the city. I was also a New Orleans police officer. And I know we have to target violent offenders and the drug gangs, because they're not only killing each other, but they're harming and killing innocent people as well. And in juvenile justice, you know, we have to deal with what that young person did, but also deal with any issues within the house as well. And I want to accomplish three things. Number one, I want to be able to support that family. Number two, I want to put that child on a positive path. And number three, I want to make that first crime the last crime. And finally, we have to use common sense. Now, I would not prosecute possession of marijuana cases, because it's legal in almost half the states in the country. I'd rather use those resources for more serious crimes. Why give a young person a criminal record just for smoking weed? And I'm not going to take the entire 90 seconds, and I'm open for the questions, and that concludes my opening.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Hunter. We appreciate you being here tonight. All right. Our next candidate up is Mr. Morris Reed. Welcome, Mr. Reed.
Thank you very much, Reverend. Certainly appreciate the invitation, and always a joy to be in the company of the membership of Justice Beyond. You know, I was actively involved with Justice and Beyond as the branch president of the NAACP, New Orleans branch president, and working with individuals who are trying with Justice and Beyond, who are engaged actively in trying and making improvements on the quality of life in our community. People such as Reverend Barnwell, Corinne Barnwell, who I have a history with going back to the days of the Morial administration when the Office of Municipal Investigation was set up. Look, my candidate is simple. Candidacy is simple. I have the experience of doing and performing things, performing duties and working on projects in this community to make things better for people as a whole. Going back to my days working in the TCA breakfast program in the Lower Ninth Ward when I was in high school, I've been the chief of the Civil Rights Unit for the Department of Justice in the U.S. Attorney's Office. I was the first director of OMI, investigating and preparing cases for prosecution of police officers who were killing and injuring our citizens in this community. And I was a judge of criminal court for one term. As I said before, president of NAACP. All of the things mentioned by my opponents are things that I have addressed earlier and areas I intend to make improvements on. And we'll address that later on during our discussion. I have 30 more seconds?
Yeah, you got about 20 seconds left. Yes.
Okay. Well, primarily, obviously, we got to get a grip on the narcotic trafficking in our community and the black on black homicides. That will be at the top of my list of priorities. Juvenile crime, the manner in which we handle domestic abuse cases. I sat on the board of My House, a battered women's program located in Uptown New Orleans. I've been there and done that. I have rolled up my sleeves and been in the trenches and working on social issues plaguing our community. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
For joining us again tonight. Councilman Jason Williams, welcome. We're glad that you can make it tonight. Please give us your 90-second introduction.
Thank you, Reverend Manning, and to all the members of Justice and Beyond for your civic engagement throughout the years. The District Attorney's Office historically has been guided by a win at all cost culture that has caused us to have the highest exoneration rate and the highest incarceration rate in the country. I want to flip that on its head. As DA, I want to replace that culture that seeks those victories at all costs with a culture that seeks justice for victims while maintaining equity for anyone that comes in touch with the criminal justice system. I have a record of working with stakeholders in the community to bring progressive reform to our criminal legal system as a lawyer who worked pro bono with the Innocence Project and a defense attorney for 2 decades, as a judge in 2003, and as president of the city council. I promise to reject all cases built on racial profiling and illegal stop and frisk. I promise to never treat a child like an adult. I will keep kids in juvenile court, and I will prioritize the crimes that matter most. And I will not, at any point in time, treat mental illness or addiction as if the criminal justice system is the best place for it. Those things should be handled outside of the criminal justice system. As president of the city council and city council chair of the criminal justice committee, I have worked with stakeholders to create, to decriminalize marijuana, to work on municipal bail reform and bring it down. And we brought jail size all the way down to close to 700 as of now.
Thank you, Councilman. Thank you. Appreciate you being here again. All right, everyone. We're going to put the questions up on the screen. I know that I believe all of you were sent the questions at one time. I'm going to ask that you would answer 3 of those questions within the range of about 2.5 minutes. Last time I said we're going to begin in alphabetical order, but I began with Kiva first. We're actually going to begin with alphabetical order this time and start with Mr. Arthur Hunter. Mr. Arthur Hunter, if you would select one question, read that question, and then answer it. That time will begin once you start answering the question. Mr. Hunter.
You have to unmute yourself.
You're muted.
Reverend, I'm having problems with Kiva going first. That's not a big issue for me. If she wants to go first, that's fine.
All right, Kiva, you want to go first?
Sure.
All right, thank you.
So, Reverend, I just want to make sure that I understand the process. Am I only doing one question now and then someone else goes, or am I doing all 3?
Exactly. You're going to do one question now, and then
Okay.
we're going to move on to the next person, then you'll be up in the second round again.
Sure. So I'll start with number 3. Explain the process you intend to use to screen cases where you are asked to make a determination. Our concern is one of ensuring expediency so people don't have their lives on hold, lost wages, family trauma, etc. And so as our district attorney, it is going to be my process, number 1, to make sure that we always screen cases with the idea of that we're going to do incarceration second and alternatives first. And so as it relates to nonviolent misdemeanor cases, we are going to push aggressively to place those cases in diversion. And for those that we could not divert, at the very least in pretrial, make sure that we advocate for people's release. I have no plans on and will not prosecute any possession of marijuana cases in criminal district court. However, for those other misdemeanor nonviolent cases, we will seek to make sure that everyone gets out is either released pre-trial and placed in diversion programs, and where they can't be placed in diversion, at least those cases will be screened accordingly. I also want to make sure that everyone understands that any case that is based on police officer misconduct, the office is going to reject. We will not accept cases where police officers have acted inappropriately. As to the violent crime cases and witness cases, those are going to be our priority. And so we are going to be aggressive in pushing those through the system. In all other instances, the goal under my administration is going to be to reduce the reliance on jail by offering rehabilitation for nonviolent offenders first. We are going to be aggressive in expediting the prosecutorial process, working with the police department to make sure that we can get the necessary information so that people don't just sit in jail. I understand the toll that an unfair criminal justice system has on families and has on individuals. And we always start with the fact that people are presumed innocent until proven guilty. And so the purpose of bond or bail is to ensure their appearance in court. And so anything that affects their livelihood, such as losing their families, losing their wages, also affects our community.
Very good. Thank you, Kiva, for that answer. And we're going to move now to Judge Hunter. If you would, choose, read, and then answer your question in 2.5 minutes.
It's question number 2. Question number 2 is, how can you foster relationships with organizations that can support or intervene on behalf of those who would benefit from alternatives to incarceration? You know, one of the things I learned when we started the reentry court in 2010 is that we reached out to the legislative branch, and Congressman Richmond, who was state representative in Richmond at that time, sponsored legislation to create the reentry court. We reached out to the executive branch, and so we talked to and brought on board the people from the Department of Corrections and Angola officials who would establish the training for the people who we sent in the reentry program. And then the judges were involved, myself and Judge Laurie White. So we had the judicial, executive, and legislative branch working together to make the city safer, to have those young kids who went to Angola come back with their GED, a skilled trade in a new mindset, and a job waiting for them. And look, I know also when I was a mental health court judge and when I was a veterans treatment court judge, I reached out to people who knew more than I did. I don't know it all. And I've always tried to surround myself with people who know more than I am and who's smarter than I am, especially when we reached out to the social workers, we reached out to the mental health professionals. You know, we work with the probation and parole agents, and we work with case managers. And so, you know, as a district attorney, I know it has to be more than just about prosecuting the case and seeking to get a conviction or probation. If we want to be a safer city, and if we want to help people and put them on a positive path, we have to reach out to those other elected officials and those other community organizations to make sure, again, that we become a safer city and that people be given a positive path to be better.
All right. Thank you, Judge Hunter. Our next candidate will be Mr. Morris Reed. If you please choose, read, and answer the next question.
Oh, the next question, or any question from the?
Any question.
Okay, thank you very much. I have, I've worked at, there's only 2 candidates in this race who have experience prosecuting cases. And that is Kiva Landrum and myself. Kiva has limited experience, and of course I have extensive experience in the federal system as well as the state system. And I say that because of this. I've had exposure to an alternative way to guarantee that individuals show up for trials. And that's the system of bail that's used in the federal judicial system. I would employ that system and adapt it to our local system and get rid of the cash money bail system where you have third parties getting rich off individuals who have been arrested, could be unfairly and unjustly, and awaiting trial. You remember, we have to keep in mind our U.S. Constitution and state constitution said an individual, well, a mere arrest is not supposed to be a conviction, mean conviction, and certainly not supposed to mean summary punishment, death at the hands of a rogue police officer. So we have to presume those individuals under arrest are presumed innocent until their trial, and we should treat them that way. I would dismantle the cash money bail system and get rid of the third party bounty hunters. And we will put in place a system with emphasis on property bonds, recognizance bond, third party responsible persons being interveners to get individuals to court for trial. The objective is to have an individual in your courtroom and ready for trial if the trial comes up. But we all know that 80% of the cases, if not more, are disposed of before trial. If everybody asks for a trial, it would shut the system down. So the bail system will be gone under my administration. That's one question. Do I go into question 2 and 3?
Just that one. Thank you.
Okay,
We'll
because it's been punitive in nature, and primarily to the least able to afford bail, and the least able, the economically disadvantaged, and those individuals who are with limited education have been victimized twice, possibly by our punitive criminal justice system, starting with the police, and then of course coming with the punitive bail system. I would advocate for getting rid of the cash money bail system.
All right, thank you so much. All right, let's move on to our next candidate, Councilman Jason Williams. Please choose any question, read it, and then answer that question. Thank you.
Reverend Manning, I'll take that last question, number 7. We need full transparency on conviction rates, ages, races, sexual identity. What ideas do you have to make that data transparent and easily accessible to the public? Something like dashboards. Transparency will be a cornerstone of my DA's office, just as transparency was a cornerstone of my tenure on the city council. As DA, I will make sure that every New Orleanian can see what their money is paying that office to do. I will collect properly and publish regularly the data on who my office decides to prosecute and who it decides not to prosecute and who it decides to divert. And I will make sure that that information is constantly available to the public. During my tenure on the city council, I pushed for the use of technology and data to enhance the lives of New Orleanians. We established the first of their kind public-facing dashboards to track crime trends, track police incidents of misconduct, to track jail population. We have another one that tracks money bail, so you can see what judges are asking to post. We have one for traffic hammock tickets. And then with the insurgence of COVID-19, we created a dashboard in that first week of the shutdown to track the local spread of COVID-19. These dashboards are published on the city council website that would allow any person to pick up their smartphone or their computer from the comfort of their homes and check all of these things out so they can actually grade the papers of the people they elect. I want to do that exact same thing in the first 100 days of being DA. So you can see who is in the diversion. You won't have their names per se, but you will have ages, you have races, you have sexual identity. And just so you can make sure that the office is working equitably for all communities. For far too long, the DA's office has really just been involved in the business of protecting one group and over prosecuting another group. And I believe that these dashboards have really helped me in my fight against DA Canizaro's ruthless and atrocious policies. Because every time we try to reduce money bail or reduce arrests for marijuana, he would say juvenile crime is up. He would use fear mongering, but we had the data that we could use on these dashboards to show that his fear mongering was just that, and we didn't let it take hold because of the use of these public facing dashboards and I promise to have these instituted in the first 100 days of being in office.
All right. Thank you, Councilman. Very good. Everyone, we're going to move to our next round of questions, of your choice for this second round. I do want to ask that you all would make sure that you are sticking directly to answering the question that is there. Otherwise, I will step in to redirect so that that question can be answered for all of our audience members on tonight. So thank you for keeping a close eye on whether you're truly answering the question. So let's begin with this second round of questions. We'll begin this time with Judge Arthur Hunter. If you would, choose the next question, read it, and then answer it, please. Any question?
It'll be question number this will be question number 3. Explain the process you intend to use to screen cases where you are asked to make a determination. Our concern is one of ensuring expediency so people don't have their lives on hold, lost wages, family trauma, etc. In the screening unit, I'm going to have a process in which I'm going to have an ADA or Assistant District Attorney available 24/7, 365. So before that arrest warrant is submitted for signature by a judge, I'm going to make sure that that police officer has the sufficient information to justify the charge. And if it's not there, then the police officer will have to go back and get the required information. And what that's going to do is going to accomplish 3 things. Number 1, we're going to make sure we have the right person and not any person. Number 2, it's going to make sure that we now need to, a jury now needs to be persuaded to find a person guilty beyond a reasonable doubt unanimously with 12, not 10 out of 12. You know, and number 3 is going to make that police officer a better police officer as well. Because we know we have a number of people who are doing what they call DA time, waiting to go to trial. And many times it takes months, sometimes even a year and a half before those cases are resolved, either through dismissal, through a reduction in charges in which they receive probation. But in the meantime, we paying tax money to the sheriff's office, and people are in jail who will eventually be released on probation, or the charges will be dismissed.
All right. Thank you, Judge Hunter. Let's move to Judge Reed. If you would, please choose and read and answer the next question.
I would, let me see. Explain the, how can you foster, number 2, how can you foster relationships with organizations that can support, intervene on behalf of those who will benefit from alternatives to incarceration? Well, I've done it in the past. I've worked with, I stated earlier, a battered women's program, a drug treatment program in Adams House below the Industrial Canal through Pastor Dyson. I've been engaged with Justice Beyond, NAACP, and I will continue, TCA, I will continue my active involvement with the nonprofit organizations who are in the trenches and working on the crime problems and the recidivism in our community. I will meet on a regular basis. Not only will I meet on a regular basis, I would require that my staff devote a certain number of hours per month to interacting with nonprofit organizations who are working on reducing the rate of recidivism and reducing the number of individuals incarcerated. And that will be a part of their community relations effort. I plan to have a community affairs division established, a community affairs division or bureau established in the office to deal with fostering relationships with the community. Similar to what the police department had with the community relations division in their ranks. And what it helped to do is make for better working relationships, and witnesses become more encouraged to come forward and participate in the system that's not foreign to them. And they don't look at it as a occupying force, as opposed, and maybe look up on it as individuals who are there, a system that's there to better their lives and make the community better. So we have to foster better working relationships with the community, working with the clergy, working with nonprofit organizations, working with academia, and working with social services agencies through the state and the city to work on the crime problem. It's just that one facet of the community can't. This got to be a community-based approach to dealing with the criminality in our community and of course, fostering a better quality of life. I plan to have my sleeves rolled up and don't plan to be a stranger to the communities. So therefore, when we have to call upon individuals in the community, we won't be looked upon as strangers. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge Reed. Well, let's move on to Councilman Williams. Please choose, read, and answer the next question.
Question number 2, how can you foster relationships with organizations that can support / intervene on behalf of those who will benefit from alternatives to incarcerations? First and foremost, my chief tenet of my entire platform, you can see it at Run with Jason, is to end mass incarceration. And we have to attack that from several fronts. And one of the ideas that I want to put in place in very, very short order is the creation of a community advisory board that will be made up of third parties and stakeholders in the community who have some expertise in this area and who are delivering services day in and day out, so they can advise the office in how it can be more equitable and how it can turn a corner from decades of bias prosecuting. For example, in this advisory council, I would hope to have a subject matter expert in restorative justice like Troy Boucher, a subject matter expert with persons involved in mental health crises like a Janet Hayes, a member from Justice and Beyond, a member from the ACLU, a member from the Innocence Project, so that we are not, again, in a situation where we are coming together in a time of crisis, but rather we are working together every single month trying to figure out ways to support and intervene and come up with other plans other than simply jail. And I think, you know, a lot of times people think doing something the same way you did it for years is the answer, or if you do more of the same thing. But what I want to do is have this community advisory board so that it creates long-standing relationships that will help define the office in community, so that when it is time for a witness to come to court, they're not scared of the criminal legal system. They're not scared of the DA's office. They actually trust it because they've seen it put things in place that have improved their community. When someone is in the middle of a mental health crisis, we will have a program so this person doesn't have to go through the criminal justice system the same as we have in the past. And I think this advisory board is the first of its kind. I think it is similar to what I'm doing at the city council now with regards to the funding of the police and the funding of the criminal justice system. I wrote legislation to create the Jerome Big Duck Community Advisory Board so that community could be involved at City Hall month in, day out with how money is spent in the city of New Orleans. And I will do that exact same thing with how this office runs, working with collaborators with this advisory board.
Thank you, Councilman Williams. Let's move now to Judge Landrum. If you would, choose and read and answer the last question in this round.
For number 4, how much of your budget, considering the 20% cut on the table now, will be allotted to diversion / alternatives to prison sentences? Is restorative practice something you have used? And then the subpart, do you believe diversions should be community-based and why? And so, going back to the original part of the question, as to the budget, I have extensive training and have extensive experience in dealing with the city council and the budget process. I have been the chief judge and deputy chief judge for a criminal district court. And so I'm aware of what that budgeting process looks like and how it needs to operate and, work for the office. What I am going to have to do as our next district attorney is really get in and see how the current budget was utilized and how much of that budget went to diversion programs. I think that has been a little unclear and a little difficult to get the budget from the current administration and how diversion fit into that. But under my plans to expand diversion, we need a diversion program that will be expanded and link people to the services that they need. And so it may be necessary to then increase portions of our budget, not the budget itself, but increase the amount of money that was going to diversion traditionally and add to that, so that we can enhance that program and make it more robust and make it more available to more people in our community and more people that come before us. And so that would be my plan, and then always focusing on and prioritizing for prosecution those violent crimes and victim crimes. As to the second portion, is restorative practice something you have used? I have extensive training and extensive experience as a prosecutor. I have over 120 judge and jury trials under my belt, and similarly the same as a judge. And with that being said, I have utilized restorative justice practices both as a prosecutor and as a judge. And so yes, as our district attorney, I will commit to utilizing the practice within the office. What I recognize is that restorative justice techniques provide healing for the victims and their families, but also as to the offender, it gives them an opportunity to discuss what was the root cause of that criminal action, and also admit and bring some type of healing to both of them, with the victim and the defendant. And so I fully commit to that. I recognize that it is going to be extremely helpful in our juveniles to help them, so that it becomes a way in which we keep them out of the system when we utilize those restorative practices. Also, the subpart says, do you believe diversion should be community-based and why? Absolutely. I think that, what we know is that it is going to take a full circle approach, even when it comes to diversion, and especially with our juveniles as well. I know that criminal activity is a result of something else. There are a lot of root causes to this. It could be poverty, it could be substance abuse, it could be mental health issues. And so the only way to fully address these, both in a diversion program for adults and for children, would be to look at what are those root causes and link people with the services that they need. And so when we look at community-based diversion, we're looking at treating families, we're looking at treating educational needs, and then we're looking at treating those additional needs. And
Thank you, Judge Landrum. Thank you, Judge Landrum.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. We're going to now move to our third and final round of the pre-written questions before we move to questions from the audience. Let's begin this round with Judge Reed.
All right. We're going back.
Yes, choose any question, read it, and then answer it, please, sir.
Well, having been a judge and having worked as a prosecutor, I have an interest in bringing together the district attorney and the courts in a more productive, so we can have them working in a more productive setting. And although there are other priorities, I choose number 5 to say this. Historically, the relationship of the DA with the district courts has been unproductive. How do you plan to improve that? Well, having worked as a federal prosecutor and saw how federal judges deal with the U.S. attorney for the District of Louisiana, and going through that system as an investigator and also as a prosecutor, I would adapt that federal system to our state court. In other words, every month, the U.S. attorney for the city of New Orleans or the Eastern District of Louisiana meets with the judges in the Eastern District of Louisiana to discuss how things are going in each of those offices, as well as the public defender's office. And I certainly would include the director of the public defender's office in such meetings of those elements of the community justice system. And to discuss resources, manpower allocations, relationships with the attorneys and the assistant DAs in the court, and ironing out any problems that might be there, and coming up with ideas and solutions to improve the system, so the public spends less time in that building with individuals who are subject to justice being administered. One of the things that I did as a judge was to bring the electronics improvements to the system. We set up an electronic process for jury selections. Judge McKay and I went to Canada and looked at their programs. We have to be open-minded as prosecutors and look around the country and look around the world and see what they're doing in other areas and other parts of the world to better improve our system because we lag behind. So I'm open to discussion and interacting with the courts, having been a judge, and have an affinity for the law and for better working relationships, not only with the DA's office, but with the jail, also with the criminal sheriff. So I will take the lead on invite. In all of the years that I spent in the criminal district court as a judge and as a defense counsel, I never once saw Harry Connick or visit the judges' en banc meetings that they have once a month. So I would foster. I think you have to meet and talk in order to better foster a better working relationship, and the public as a whole will benefit from that. So I plan to extend the olive branch to the judges as the chief prosecutor in this community, because you as prosecutors represent the judges as well. They are citizens also. They have families, they have concerns and love for their community. And I think they would be open to that.
All right, thank you very much, Judge Reed. Let's move on to Councilman Williams. Please choose, read, and answer the next question.
Question number 6, do you plan to have a hearing before considering a youth be transferred to an adult court? To avoid the traumatizing effects of jail and resulting recidivation, will you use diversion programs in community to supervise and support those awaiting trial? Taking into account a child's age, culpability, life circumstances, and treatment needs, will they be assessed for competency or trauma or any other issues? Taking the first question first, I will not transfer kids from the juvenile jail to the adult jail. I will handle kids in the criminal legal system, in the juvenile system where they belong. I am committed to breaking the school to prison pipeline. I'm committed to addressing the root causes of delinquency with our young people, and will always, in all instances, treat children like children. The overwhelming majority of system-involved youth have been exposed have been victims themselves, and have been exposed to childhood adversities. Up to 33%, based on some of the research that I've been able to uncover while being on the city council, 30% of the children in our town right now have developed post-traumatic stress syndrome. The jailing of juveniles only additionally traumatizes them and will reduce their opportunities from being productive members of society. So I will be focused on the root causes of why a child is acting out and providing those intervention services based upon a comprehensive assessment of needs when they reach the front gate of the criminal legal system. And managing juvenile delinquency, when a case is referred, we will make a trauma-informed screening decision. And that trauma-informed screening decision will be used in deciding if we should even prosecute this child, because there may be instances where the child's case should be diverted or just not prosecuted at all. We will do an assessment, and then we will create a series of wraparound intervention services to deal with that child's misconduct that will also deal with what's going on in that child's home. I think it's important that the next DA understands that the brain of a juvenile is much different than that of an adult, and understand that those differences are critical when making sure that a child is learning from what they are going through. That is why restorative justice will be so important in the system.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you. I'm having trouble hearing the bell, so I know my facilitators are trying to turn it up. So I apologize if I cut you off.
No problem. That's your job.
All right, appreciate it, sir. Let's move now to Judge Landrum. Please choose, read, and answer your last question.
Sure. Number 1, it seems that there is broad support to rid of an unjust bail system. What steps will you take to actually dismantle the bail system? Be specific. What I know is that, and what we all know, is that real criminal justice reform begins with reforming our bail system. We know that we currently have a bail system that has been unfair and unjust to many people. As Chief Judge of Criminal District Court, I led the efforts with the court to make sure that we reform the bail system as it pertained to Criminal District Court. And that was, we instituted the very first ever ROR bail reform program. And in that program, we were extremely aggressive at releasing nonviolent offenders on ROR releases to the extent that the law would allow. And so as the district attorney, I stand behind those efforts that we started in criminal district court. More importantly, as the chief judge, I also spearheaded with our court the first pretrial services program that's ever been started in the state of Louisiana. And that is a program that also links people with the services that they need. And we lowered the jail population to the lowest that New Orleans has ever seen. And so as our DA, I stand behind these efforts. I will not get in the way of the work of criminal district court, the work that I started at criminal district court, but all the while recognizing that we also need to make sure that we have in place the right voices in court to advocate for victims of crime, to advocate for women who've been abused or sexually assaulted. And so I will then too, as our DA, make sure that we have that information readily accessible for the court and the judge to make their decisions. Was that the bell? I'm sorry.
I think that's a new one. So
Okay.
yes, 30 seconds, please.
All right, got it. Thank you. Oh, I have 30 seconds left. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think so.
And the other thing is, I think that we have to come together as a criminal justice system, everyone together, and I will stand at the helm of that as our next DA to make sure that we advocate for a bail system that is fair to everyone, but also protects our public safety.
All right, very good. Thank you, Judge Landrum. Judge Hunter, you have the last question and then answer until we open it up to the audience.
You know, Morris, yeah, you know, Morris took my question, you know, but I believe it's important because, you know, and it's question number 5, historically, the relationship of the DA with the district courts has been unproductive. How do you plan to improve on that? Well, we're going to do 3 things. Number 1, I'm not going to rotate. I'm going to stop rotating assistant district attorneys throughout the different sections. If that district attorney starts the case, he or she will finish the case. And then I'm going to have quarterly meetings with the judges as well. You know, even though, you know, I had a good relationship with the judges when I was a chief judge, I had a good relationship with the judges. You know, and, you know, last, and which is more important, you know, just as important, you know, I'm going to run the office with integrity, and I'm going to respect the law. And I'm not going to blast the judge because I disagree with their decision. I would do what you're supposed to do. You take a writ or an appeal to the appeals court or the Supreme Court. And so the drama of going on the courtroom steps, inviting the media and blasting the judges, that will end once I become district attorney.
All right, thank you, Judge Reed, for that. Listen, before we move to the audience, I've got one question that is collectively for all of you that I'd like you to answer. I know you've been to many forums during this campaigning time. I want you to think very, very carefully about, has there been any question that you have not been asked yet, that you might be surprised that you haven't been asked, or that you can say, well, I've never been asked this, and this is, if I were asked, this is how I would answer. So has there been any question that you haven't been asked that you would like to answer for us tonight, as if you had been asked it?
Who's first?
Let's go with Judge Reed first.
I have one. With so much in the news about the grand jury process, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
With so much in the news about the grand jury process, and the grand jury plays such a pivotal role in police brutality cases. Over the years, with police brutality and murder cases, the prosecutors have sought not to take an affirmative stance and charge police officers, although they can charge a police officer while sitting at their desk. They don't have to use the grand jury system. This is what I suggest. This is what I propose if I was your DA. Number 1, and a lot of folks haven't paid attention to this, our previous district attorneys, the last 2 who served in that office, and I don't want to put emphasis on their names because personalities is not that important, moved the grand jury from the courthouse and to the interior of their district attorney's office. The grand jury system should be under the auspices of the judge, the judiciary, and not the district attorney. It is not his private fiefdom. As your DA, I will move the grand jury room back to the courthouse When that courtroom was built over 75 years ago, they built the grand jury room on the second floor of the courthouse at Tulane and Broad. Our district attorney in the 80s and 90s, being as bold as he was, and moved the grand jury to across the street to his personal, to the DA's office. And our last DA continued that tradition. I will return the grand jury, since it's been co-opted, back to the courthouse, where the grand jury returns charges to judges and not the district attorney. It is not his private grand jury or her private grand jury, and the grand jury will not be beholden to the DA. The grand jury should be, we talk about transparency, the cloak of privacy should be removed from the grand jury. Grand jury transcripts should be made public after the trial of defendants. There is nothing, no compelling reason in our jurisprudence that would require the grand jury transcript to be maintained, seek the secrecy over the grand jury transcripts after the grand jury proceeding has been concluded. I would advocate for, I will move as district attorney because the DA moved it across the street. I will return the grand jury room to the judiciary across the street. I will make open more transparency with the process and will not use the grand jury as a cloak to hide things from the public.
All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Let's move on to Judge Hunter.
No, Reverend, man, I can't think of any questions that we haven't been asked, that's for sure.
Okay.
We've been asked a number of questions, and everyone is given the most reasonable, the best answer they can give. I can't think of any.
All right, thank you, Judge. All right, let's move to Councilman Williams.
I think I would say, in terms of, no one has asked what do you see as an overarching issue or an overarching problem that's going to face the city moving forward in the criminal legal system? And I would say illegal guns. And I think that illegal guns, really, if you look at the car burglaries that are going on in the neighborhoods, I've spoken to kids, I've spoken to the police to try to figure out what was going on there. And they're breaking into cars to try to find a gun that they can sell in the black market. And that gun is then being used for retaliatory crime in the city. And so I would say that is the thing that we have to work on in a collaborative effort. And I would say as DA, for the first time, I would sit down with the police chief and the mayor and the council and other stakeholders like the sheriff to see how we can pull deputies into this mix to come up with a comprehensive strategy to go after illegal guns in our street to take care of that market. I think part of it is leading our kids into a life of crime for quick money. And the other part of it is hurting our community because people are using those guns on each other. And so I would be committed the same way I was with working with the police chief and the mayor and the federal judges to come up with a tiger team to deal with the murder rate we had a few years ago, to bring that down, to come up with a comprehensive strategy to focus on the illegal guns in our streets.
All right, thank you, Councilman. Judge Landrum?
Yes, and I guess the question that I would directly ask would be, what plans did we have for domestic violence victims, and how would we support them in the office? And my answer would be that, as a prior prosecutor who has worked for victims and worked with victims, and especially women who've been abused, as our next DA, it is going to be a priority of mine to make sure that very early on in that system that we make contact with the victim and we get as much information so that we can communicate any risk or threat that they may have to the court in the bond setting process, and also to be a voice for that victim and an advocate, and to shore up our victim witness assistance program so that we can provide the necessary support. In addition to that, I think that there is that legislation that is in effect wherein the court is supposed to ask any offender of a domestic violence situation whether they own or possess any firearm. And so it would be our office that is going to make sure that that is occurring in court at those processes. And so we would remind the court of that obligation so that if that offender does, it can be surrendered to the court and to the sheriff's office appropriately, so we can minimize any potential risk or danger we have in these domestic violence situations.
All right. Thank you, Judge Landrum. We're now going to move to our round that will last for 20 minutes until 6:20 with our audience asking questions themselves. And so the way that's going to work is that, audience, you may ask questions by simply showing that you have a question to ask by using the reaction button that is provided for us on this platform, in which you can raise your hand. You can always throw your hands in the air and do it like that so that you can be addressed, or you can write your question in the chat box, which is generally most preferred. And then one of our facilitators, Ben or Myron, will read that question. And all of you don't have to answer the question. It may be directed towards a specific candidate. Again, this section will last until 6:20. I'm sorry, till 6:20. I'm in Indiana, so our time is off right now. So I'm traveling. Forgive me for that. All right, let's move to our first question. Myron or Ben, does anyone have a question?
Yeah, Sylvia does.
Sylvia.
Good evening, everyone. I hope all is well. And I just like to say, I thank all of you panelists for being here with us at Justice and Beyond. Mr. Reed and Mr. Hunter, I have so much experience with you all from years ago. My main question is another hot topic with the defunding of the police. How is y'all stance on that? Like the repercussions or what you plan to do? You know, what could we do to fix this situation or whatever? But the defunding of the police department, tell me.
I think we got it. Thank you, Sylvia. How do you stand, candidates, if anybody wants to answer on the plan to defund the police? Agree, disagree? Where do you stand?
I guess I'll take the first shot. Being a former police officer, I'll take the shot. I don't believe in defunding the police, but what I do believe is for every police officer you hire, you should hire a social worker. Because you need mental health officials, mental health workers, and social workers to go on calls that police officers are not adequately trained to handle. I mean, I can give you an example. When I was a police officer, you know, we went on a call in which somebody was attempting to commit suicide, and we got there before the crisis intervention unit could arrive. And you know, we were talking the guy down, and we thought we were, and we was in his house in his front room, and when he sat down, you know, with the gun, we thought we actually had him and that he was going to drop the gun. But he committed suicide right there in front of us. And so police officers are not adequately trained to handle the mental health issues or the issues dealing with the homeless or issues dealing with people with drug addiction. So, you know, we need to have funding to deal with those issues, those sources, those root causes of crime and poverty. And again, I believe, and I had a conversation with the mayor about this as well, you know, for every police officer you hire, you should hire a social worker or a mental health worker as well.
All right, thank you, sir. Anyone else?
Well,
I'll take a crack at it.
Okay.
I think the community is right in the sense that spending the lion's share of the city's budget on the cat and mouse nature of the criminal justice system, rather than investing in people to get better outcomes on the front end, it is a bad model. And we have to start talking about reallocating funds so that we are investing in people rather than investing in the traps for people. And right now, there are a number of those traps. And so that's why I created the Jerome Big Duck Citizen Advisory Board, so that and we have an ex-offender, we have a youth representative, we have community representatives, we have folks from the Latina community, the Vietnamese community, so everyone can weigh in on how we are spending tax dollars every single year. I'm committed to have the DA's office take less money in my first year so that we can gain parity with the public defender's office. I mean, it's not just the police. We've got to readjust things so that the system is a fair system. Right now, it's a criminal legal system, but we have to do a lot of work to make it a criminal justice system. And so I think there's a lot of factors to take into place.
All right, thank you, Councilman.
may I?
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Quickly, most of it has been said, but I like the idea of reallocating those monies not giving the money back to the city or to the state and say we don't use it, because each police officer receive a supplemental pay from the state. They pay partially by the state as well as the city. I think the funds should be reallocated. One of the things in my platform, and I have an 11-page platform, but starting in the DA's office, we're going to send back to the police department 20 police officers, and they can use them on the street, who are now vacationing in the district attorney's office. I don't plan to have police officers investigating brutal police officers who are subject to being reviewed by the district attorney's office. I would like to have civilian input in those positions. So I want 20 civilian investigators in place of New Orleans police officers in the DA's office. We have to de-emphasize and reduce the influence of the police department in the DA's office. And you're going to see a different outcome in a lot of these situations where police officers are subject to investigations. So I think there must be a reallocation of resources, more community involvement in the district attorney's office, as well as the police department, less money spent on tanks, high-power rifles, lasers, and all of this Army surplus equipment that they are stockpiling in our city at citizens' expense that we don't need and don't use. So I would like to see the money used wiser. I would like to see the money used on a preventative side, on a proactive side,
Thank you, Judge Reed.
community-based program to prevent crime to start with.
Okay, thank you, Judge Reed. Thank you for making that distinction, because a lot of people sometimes do not equate the understanding that defunding doesn't mean abolishing. It means reallocating and shifting some things around. So you, so far, you've all made that distinction. I appreciate that. Judge Landrum, you want to
Sure.
tackle that question too?
Well, and that was what I was going to say. There have been several different definitions about defunding the police, but I stand with the definition, or at least with the thought process, that we need to start shoring up those things that are the root causes of crime. And that means that putting money into social services such as mental health, substance abuse, et cetera. And that doesn't have to just come from defunding the police. It can come from, other sources as well, but to make sure that we start as a community addressing those things that we know are the root of criminal activity. I believe that the police should be focusing and prioritizing violent crime and those things that would keep New Orleans as a safe city, and so that they don't have to then be called to be mental health specialists or substance abuse specialists, because that is not the job of the police. Their job is to focus on those things that are failing to keep us safe. And so we should have the police officers be policemen and women, and also then provide in our community those things that we need to link people with the help that they need.
Okay, thank you, Judge Landrum. Let's move on to our next question from our audience. Ben or Myron, do we have a question?
Yeah, there were quite a few questions posed in the chat, and I saw them in an order that goes as follows. Do you want to just go like that, Rev?
Let's go like that. And candidates, I'm going to give you, remember two things. Not all of you have to answer the question, but if you feel that you must, then that's fine too. Secondly, I'm going to give you about 1 minute to answer the question, so we can get it to as many as possible. So let's tighten up the time.
The first one is from Simone Levine. Simone, do you want to ask it?
Sure. If none of my kids end up interrupting, I'm more than happy to ask it. I don't think my question was the first one, though, but I'm more than happy to ask mine. This is my question for all DA candidates. In 2019, DA Cannizzaro spent $400,000 for legal expenses. This was public money and our money. What is each one of the candidates' position on the fraudulent subpoenas lawsuit? Do you intend to appeal the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals judgment?
No.
Go ahead, Judge Hunter. 1 minute.
No. As a matter of fact, I'm going to bring those cases back to the DA's office and evaluate those cases. And if I find that they were without merit, and I believe they are without merit, I'm going to settle those cases as soon as possible. And really, if you go back, if you look at the budget, you go back the last 3 years, it's been more than $600,000 paid to lawyers to defend those lawsuits. And so that's going to be first day, bring those lawsuits back to the office, evaluate them, And I truly believe they are emeritus and settle those cases as soon as possible to save taxpayers money.
All right, thank you, Judge Hunter. Anyone else?
Well, what
I
I'll
can-
say is I have not followed exactly where it is in the process of the lawsuits. However, I will fully evaluate them, and if they are not of merit, then I would do the same. But I would really have to be apprised of what the status of those lawsuits is at this time, and then make a full evaluation of it. But I will not stand with anything that is not meritorious.
Thank you, Judge Landrum.
I can talk about where they are as well, if that's helpful, but if it's not, I won't.
Well, I mean, the thing is, I think it would be improper to discuss the pending lawsuit without us actually, having that. But I mean, what I can tell you is I would not go forward if I believe it did not have merit. And if they don't, I don't know the ins and outs of it. I know the generalization of it. But as an office, I would not. And I don't believe in just wasting taxpayer money on frivolous lawsuits.
Okay.
Pastor Manning?
Yeah, go ahead, Councilman.
I would say right now that I have followed the ins and outs of the lawsuits, and I know exactly where they stand now. I actually watched the oral arguments, and they are in fact meritless. And the current DA has wasted ridiculous amounts of taxpayer dollars defending them. Not only has he wasted your money, he's also broken the public trust by standing behind something that was so offensive. And I feel the same way about the Robert Jones's pending suit as well. That suit should be paid. There are a number of things that the district attorney's office has done in the past, a number of sins. And the next DA is going to either have to stand up, apologize for those things and make them right, or be neutral, which I don't think, when you're neutral, you're supporting the oppressor. So the next DA has to take a stand on these issues and stop paying lawyers taxpayer dollars to defend foolishness.
Thank you, Councilman. Judge Reed?
Well, the thing that bothers me is that it's the same lawyers traditionally who've been feeding at the public trough throughout the process with the DA's office. No, I wouldn't continue pursuing a frivolous matter in court when coming out the gate, the district attorney knew full well what he was doing was illegal. But when you got your boot on the back of poor people and the disadvantaged, you think that a lot of your abuses will go unanswered. So no, the short answer is no, I would not continue the oppressive practice of issuing subpoenas to victims of crime through intimidation. With better community relations, they will come to your office voluntarily. I would not waste the public money on continuing litigating that issue, no.
All right, thank you, Judge Reed. Ben, we have another question.
Yeah, and Simone was right. Pat had actually asked a question before that. Sorry about that, Pat. Do you want to ask it here? Pat, you're on mute here.
Pat, can you hear us?
Okay, I got you. Can you hear me?
All right. Yes, go ahead, sir.
Fake subpoenas have been a problem. We got 3 people who've been judges here. Have you ever had witnesses or otherwise people brought in your court, jailed by subpoenas that were issued by the DA and not the court?
All right, thank you, Pat. Let's go with Judge Reed first. If anybody else wants to answer to. Judge Reed?
No, when I was DA, when I was judge, I didn't have that type of relationship with the district attorneys. So he knew better to come into my courtroom with foolishness like that. So he took those kind of requests of judges that he had a more affable relationship with. I didn't have to contend with that. My role with him was more adversarial in nature, but I would not have upheld such a measure and a methodology of getting victims into the office.
All right. Thank you, Judge Reed. Judge Landrum, do you want to answer that?
So just so that I'm clear, I believe Mr. Bryant's question refers to whether or not you've signed or issued a warrant as a judge for, it could be a victim or a witness. Is that correct, Mr. Bryant?
Yeah.
Okay.
Whether or not there were in your court victims or witnesses on fake subpoenas.
Got it. So, I want to make a couple of, I guess, distinctions. Number one, I have not issued a warrant for a victim on a fake subpoena. However, I have issued material witness warrants for witnesses who have failed to come forward on cases, and the DA did provide the necessary documentation showing that. And I think that the difference is this. The law provides that if there is a witness who is evading the law for whatever that reason is, and after having been duly served, and has necessary information to come forward on a case, and for whatever reason is hiding that information, then that is an available option. And so the district attorney has presented in my section of court warrants for those occasions. However, when it stands to material victim warrants, those fake subpoenas that we're talking about, I think that it is uniquely different because those were women who were afraid of the accuser. And so then to jail them was improper. Those subpoenas were improper. But I do think that there's a mechanism in a law
Thank you, Judge Landrum. Thank you. Let's go with Judge Hunter. You're next if you want to answer that same question.
Yeah, sure. Fake subpoenas, no fake subpoenas. My 23 years, I may have signed a material witness warrant, but and not for, as far as I know, for victims of domestic abuse or sexual violence. But let me say this: I was itching to do what they do in Texas, which means that if a district attorney wants a judge to sign a material witness warrant, that person who's directed against should have a lawyer. And there should be a hearing before the judge to determine whether or not the facts exist to justify a material witness warrant. And so I would do that even though the law doesn't call for it right now. I would go to a judge with the facts if it's necessary to do that. But in order for that to not happen, you first have to make sure you establish integrity and trust in the community and within an office. And so we're going to look forward to making sure we're working with the Family Justice Center on domestic violence cases and sexual assault cases to make sure that support mechanism is there for that survivor and for that victim of domestic abuse or sexual assault. And we don't have to go through that process of forcing someone to testify in court.
All right, very good. And Councilman Williams, I don't want to leave you out of this question, so you can answer.
I was a judge at criminal district court in 2003, and no, never have.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Councilman. All right, let's move on to our next question. And candidates too, I think we talked with you about saying to 6:30, so I was erroneous when I said 6:20. So give me to 6:30. Is that all right? All right, let's go on. Ben.
Yeah, it's next is Arissa and then Ms. Ann Meyer.
Okay, and can you hear me?
Yes.
Thanks to all of you for being here. I've really learned a lot tonight. This is a question for Judge Hunter. I understand that the DA's sentencing recommendations carry significant weight with judges. The first question is, do you subscribe to the Christian belief that redemption is possible for all people? And if so, how could you seek the death penalty in quote unquote extreme cases?
Well, my position on the death penalty is no different than Barack Obama or Ruth Bader Ginsburg. There are circumstances and extreme circumstances regarding that. But look, let me say this. I'm personally against the death penalty, and I resided over 3 death penalty trials since 1997, the most that any judge has. Those cases are stressful. They really affect you as a judge. They affect the lawyers and of course the defendant and the victim's family and the jury as well. And so first, I have to convince, regardless of what those facts are, whether or not a jury in Orleans Parish would actually render a verdict and come back with the death penalty. regardless of what the circumstances are. And so if I'm not convinced that that jury will come back with the death penalty, I'm not going to bring forward the death penalty.
Okay, thank you. And that question was only for Judge Hunter, I stated by ERISA, but if anyone feels the need to chime in, I want to give you that opportunity.
I can't imagine the next DA believing in the death penalty when New Orleans has the highest exoneration rate in the country. There is no math that can make that okay. And it's not what it says about the defendant, it's what it says about us as a society, as a community, as a people. And life in Angola is a horrible, very, very tough sentence, and it's sufficient.
All right, thank you, Councilman. Anyone else want to chime in on that?
Well, briefly, you know, one of the things that as a judge and the district attorney, you will ask that, can you follow the law? I think if anyone answered negative to that question, then they probably will be indirectly disqualifying themselves from holding this office. Question is what type of person will you be in administering that law? Our DA in the past, our district attorneys in New Orleans Parish has abused that practice and intentionally sent innocent people to death row, knowing and when it was done, it was being done with false evidence and trumped up evidence and without a conscience. So I would not engage in that, and I would seek to protect the rights to life of every individual's case that comes across my desk. And the district attorney doesn't decide whether someone will get the death penalty. That's decided by citizens sitting on a jury to begin with, and then the judge imposes the wish of the jury and whether or not it'll be the ultimate punishment. So that is actually not in the hands of the district attorney. He can present the evidence, he or she, but the ultimate decision is made by citizens from this community. So.
All right. Thank you, Judge Reed. Thank you. Judge Landrum.
Well, I think that most everything probably isn't said, but I think the other point is that New Orleans citizens have, shown that they reject the death penalty. And more importantly, I think that enough research has been done to show how costly it is to not only pursue a death case, but then to, if you get a conviction on appeal, et cetera. And so I think that all of those things, when you weigh those, then it shows what there is no value to seeking the death penalty generally in New Orleans.
All right. Thank you, Judge Landrum. I have time for one more question before our candidates give their closing remarks. One last question, Ben.
And?
All right. Thank you so much all for being here with us and helping us make up our minds about what you are going to lead our community toward. A very recent hot topic in our community. What are your plans for recalling old outstanding warrants? And part two of that question, how will you coordinate and cooperate with the court to close old cases that have passed their time of prosecution? Thank you.
All right. Let's start with Councilman Williams first.
I think, and Kim Fott has done this in Houston, and it's worked really well. We've been able to work with Stand with Dignity and those folks in municipal court to try to figure out ways to clear old warrants. That same practice can work just as well at criminal district court, and I would be committed to working with the judges there. And as my role as DA, craft a policy hand in hand with the judges so that we could deal with these old warrants. Most folks don't want to live, or as they say, ride dirty. They want to get their affairs in order. And I think they just need an opportunity to do so. And we could do it by scheduling entire days dedicated to just that in coordination with the en banc and criminal district court.
All right. Thank you, Councilman. Judge Landrum?
Yes, and I'm happy you asked that because for the last 2 years as the chief judge, I have spearheaded an effort in clearing up old court warrants. And so literally we have erased hundreds of old warrants that were in the system in criminal district court in connection with the sheriff's office. We simply had them pull those warrants and we went through our individual dockets, recalling them and dismissing any old warrants. I think as it relates to the old cases, that is going to have to be an effort, again, with the DA's office, but absolutely plan to review any old outstanding cases and go in and actively dismiss those. It is my plan as our DA to make sure that due to COVID, these cases that have been lingering on the docket, that we are aggressive with moving those nonviolent, low-level offenses, whether it be putting them in diversion, negotiating them, or dismissing them. We have to be aggressive with removing all of these old things that have been stagnant on the docket so we can prioritize victim and violent crimes.
Right. Thank you, Judge Landrum. Judge Hunter.
Yeah, I agree with both what Jason and Kiva said. Looking at these old cases and the old warrants, it's just like Kiva said, the last 2 years, we've gone through the process of identifying these old warrants for people who haven't paid their fines and fees, and basically getting rid of those cases. And it's just like Jason said, if we can do it in municipal court, I'm looking forward to see if we can do it in criminal court as well.
All right. Thank you, Judge Hunter. Judge Reed.
Usually if a case hasn't been moved or prosecuted in 3 years, it's probably dead in the water and should be removed from the docket. I'm advocating full accountability and transparency with regards to those cases that are still pending. And there should be some public pronouncement by the DA's office to when those charges are dismissed and not just done in secrecy. So yes, I advocate clearing the dockets of cases that you're not going to prosecute, and instead of having citizens moving about with the warrants over their heads. And I would move actively to exonerate them.
Very good. Thank you, Judge Reed. All right, now time for closing remarks. If each candidate would take 90 seconds to just give your closing remarks as we begin to close. All right, let's start with Judge Landrum. 90 seconds, please.
I want to thank Justice and Beyond for the opportunity to be here virtually this evening. As our next district attorney, it is going to be important and imperative to me that we reimagine what criminal justice looks like in New Orleans, all the while keeping our eye on public safety. I plan as our next district attorney to make sure that we prioritize violent crime and crimes against women. I also vow that we are going to expand our diversion programs for adults and juveniles because it is important to get to the root causes of criminal activity and link people to the services that they need. Also, we are going to hold our police officers accountable for any misconduct and build a relationship of trust with our New Orleans citizens. So when I vow about equity, fairness, and accountability, that is the type of district attorney's office that I plan to run. And I think that is because that is what New Orleans deserves at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge Landrum. We appreciate you being here tonight. The next candidate will be Judge Hunter. 90 seconds, please. Closing remarks.
And thanks again for Justice Beyond inviting us all here tonight. This election is about how the district attorney's office has been operating for the last 50 years and how we have a chance to change that. It's about your record. It's about what you've done and when you had the opportunity to do something. And it really is, it's not about any of us up here as candidates. It's about the people. And it's about what kind of criminal justice system they want to live under and who they want to lead as their next district attorney, that criminal justice system. Whether we want to be fair or unjust, whether we want to be effective or chaotic, right or wrong. I've done the work over the last 23 years. I've walked the walk. And, I protected the community as a police officer. I was a fair judge, and I wasn't afraid to do the right thing. And I would do the same thing as your next district attorney. And so I'm asking for your support so that on November 3rd, we can have a criminal justice system that we all can be proud of, that we can hold people accountable for their actions, that we can reduce recidivism and be involved in the community, and again, making our community safe as well.
Thank you, Judge Hunter. We appreciate you being here with us tonight. Thank you so much for your time. Judge Reed.
Well, we make a lot of promises when we're running for office, and I like to thank Justice and Beyond for all that you do for this community, not only during the election times, but throughout the year. And I know you're going to be there once the DA is elected and put in office. But I say, look at what the person has done in the past. Look at my track record, my involvement in the community, such as with my House Battered Women's Program, the Adams Drug Treatment Program below the canal, as the president of the NACP New Orleans branch office, chief of the Civil Rights Division in the U.S. Attorney's Office, first director of OMI, where we had to go in a volatile situation and set up an office in the city that was non-traditional to investigate brutal police officers, sometimes killer cops. And I have the fortitude, the courage, and the commitment to do the same thing in the DA's office. You need an experienced prosecutor to set that mechanism in place. I'm an experienced prosecutor on the federal level and state level, and I have the courage and conviction to set it up and where it's going to be sustainable. I will return the grand jury to the courthouse at Tulane and Broad and take it out of the arms of the district attorney, so we can have an objective body looking at cases of police brutality and other crimes. I will set up a community affairs division to bring in support from nonprofit organizations. I will get rid of the police officers in the DA's office, lessen the influence of the police department in the district attorney's office, where the prosecutors can be more objective and accountable to no one but the citizen of the citizen. We're going to have a civil rights division that will be committed to protecting the rights of all citizens, and Black Lives Matter. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Judge Reed. We appreciate you being here. Councilman Williams, please take 90 seconds to give us your closing remarks.
Reverend Manning, thank you, and thank you to all the members that participated tonight. As your city council member for the last 2 terms, I have proven a track record of actually bringing real reform by writing real legislation that has changed lives for people in the city of New Orleans. Decriminalizing marijuana came from the New Orleans City Council, and it allowed us to bring our jail size from over 1,000 down to almost 700. And that was mostly Black folks that were in jail. And I know the race of the folks because we created a dashboard to show who was in jail at any given time. I authored the municipal bail reform legislation to further reduce the number of people that are sitting in jail simply because they can't put a few dollars together to bail out. And so I say that to say that real reform takes work, it takes courage, and you have to hire someone. You have to elect someone that has proven they will do it. Before the country was talking about taking down racist monuments, the New Orleans City Council took down racist monuments, and we got death threats for that. And I led that charge, and I was president of the city council at that time. But there is no bigger monument to racism and white supremacy than our current legal system in this country and in this city. And I have the courage to turn it around. A little bit of reform is not going to do the job. Changing 1 or 2 things is not going to bring fairness and equity to everybody in the city of New Orleans. What I'm asking us to do is to actually redesign it. And just like I architect bail reform and decriminalization of marijuana and architect those dashboards to increase transparency, I believe that the DA is the architect of the criminal justice system. And if done right, we can do it for less money and have parity in the public defender's office and spend less money on who we're jailing, and therefore spend more money in early childhood education, which I fought to do. We were the first city in this country to spend municipal dollars on early childhood education because that was the first time we reallocated money from the police department to our children. And as your DA, I'm committed to making sure that we make smart choices to keep us safe. I can show you the same way we have at the city council that criminal justice reform is not antithetical to public safety, because the job is keeping people safe. By not going after marijuana, by not going after low-level offenses, we can focus on the people who are hurting other people, and that's what I'll do.
Thank you, Councilman. Thank you. Thank you to all of our candidates tonight. We so much appreciate you taking up your time and being here with us virtually. We look forward when we can see you face to face. We wish all of you, each one of you, success as you continue your campaign. And the door is always open at Justice and Beyond, as we will call on you and you will call on us. We just look forward to being with you again. So again, thank you for being here tonight and for your open and honest questions, answers to the questions that were asked tonight. So God bless y'all as you go, and we just wish you well. God bless.
Thank you.
Everyone else who's on this call, thank you, Judge Hunter, Judge Reed, Judge Landrum, Councilman Williams. God bless y'all.
Yes.
Everybody else, we're going to hang on just, Pat, yes.
There are two people on the call, distinguished lawyers, and I'd like for us at least to have them say a word. One of them is a candidate for judge.
Absolutely, Pat. I was just going to do that. I was just going to say anybody who is a candidate, let's do that first, who would like to have about 3 minutes to speak at most to introduce yourself. And I think, Pat, one of the people you're referring to is Judge Dennis Moore.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Wait, hold on. I'm not sure he's a judge yet.
All right, Dennis Moore.
And the judge is here that he's trying to unseat.
All right. Dennis Moore, would you like to speak for about 3 minutes at most?
He's muted.
Dennis, are you there?
Unmute yourself.
I think I've unmuted myself now. So I thank y'all for allowing me briefly to just introduce myself. My name is Dennis Moore. I am now a citizen of New Orleans. I actually am running for Criminal District Court Section 8. I bring to you guys a wealth of experience as a criminal defense attorney for 23 years here in the state of Louisiana and primarily in Orleans Parish. One thing that I would like to do in running for this position, I think it's far past time that we actually stop doing the same things that we've been doing for the past 25 years and expecting changes just to come forward. I've actually listened to all of the candidates discuss their plans dealing with the district attorney's office, and I believe that's imperative of what needs to be done in concert with the judges on the bench to actually improve our lives in the city of New Orleans and the state of Louisiana. What I want to do is to actually go forward to streamline the system that we have in criminal district court, i.e. You talked about bail reform earlier. I think that's an issue that we have to deal with. You talked about other issues to actually stop going from incarcerating to saying, let's figure out ways for nonviolent crime to have alternative to incarceration. While y'all was actually speaking, one thing that I was realizing, and one of the issues that I believe causes problems in our criminal justice system is when the current DA had what is called a post diversion program, where they put you in diversion, but you have to first plead guilty to a charge, and then you go into diversion. And then if you don't complete it, you automatically have what is called a felony conviction, which I thought was wrong then, and I think it's wrong now. And I hope all of the candidates for DA will not deal with those policies. Other than streamlining, I think it's something on the judges, as judges, that we need to have more of a proactive, instead of before you actually sentence someone, we need pre-sentencing investigation. So we find out the full spectrum of what a individual have in their lives before you actually sentence them to a crime. Alternative to incarceration, a person is innocent until proven guilty. In my 23 years of experience, I've seen a whole lot of stuff in the criminal district court, specifically on Tulane and Broad. I believe it's time I have I'm gonna add this one thing and then I'll be done. Before I became an attorney, I was a engineer, a software engineer. So I know how technology can be used to actually streamline and make this system more proficient. I thank you for allowing me to speak. At some other time, I would like to speak more, but I thank you for this opportunity, and thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Moore. We appreciate it. Is there any other candidates on the call tonight that like a couple of minutes to speak?
Yes.
Judge White.
Judge White, yeah.
Judge
Hi.
Judge White.
Hi, I'm Judge Lori White. I am the judge in Section A and I have been for the last 13 years. And I don't just talk about what needs to be done. I've done it over at criminal court. I instituted video conferencing so that inmates would not have to be transported to criminal court. I did that when I first got there. I was the first section as a pilot section for a case management system. That was in 2015. It was the first of its kind. Those video conferences we started using because I started a reentry program with Judge Hunter. I also released over 1,200 bicycles from evidence over at criminal court so that those could be refurbished and given to local children. I did that because NOPD had a policy at that time to pick up everyone's bicycle that had a bicycle with them when they were arrested or charged with anything. I got that whole system changed with NOPD. I was appointed member on the Governor's Justice Reinvestment Task Force and participated in the criminal justice money-saving proposals. I am Governor John Bel Edwards' appointed chair to the Louisiana Sentencing Commission and his appointed member of the Louisiana Commission on Law Enforcement. I have walked the walk and done the talk. I don't need someone to do a pre-sentence investigation for me because I have the courage to give the lowest sentence that a person should have. Pre-sentence investigation reports are a waste of money and time because they're always going to tell you when you're a probation officer that this person needs the maximum sentence. That's why they're not used. Judges have the discretion, and I have the courage to use that discretion and to know the law and to stand up to anyone, whether a new district attorney ends up drinking the Kool-Aid and they become some sort of Leon Canizero, then we have to stand up as judges and be separate from them and make this community safe by giving treatment to individuals that need treatment from their drug addiction. I've been a great judge. I have an efficient docket. I've reduced my case numbers. I've tried over 170 jury trials as a judge. I've tried over 100 jury trials as a lawyer. My opponent doesn't have this experience and he's not done what I've done. I asked Justice and Beyond to look through this, to see that I'm the real deal. I've always been there. I've represented people in this community when they needed representation for free. I've been a prosecutor, a defense lawyer, and a judge, and I ask that you all consider me for re-election. I appreciate the time.
Thank you so much, Judge White. We appreciate you being here. All right, anyone, any other candidates? All right, I'm not hearing any.
I think Magida Sneed.
Okay. Yes, go ahead.
I think Magida Sneed may still be on, and she's someone that's really been a great.
Well, let me see if she's here.
Pastor, in the meantime, can I just ask a question? Is Justice and Beyond planning on posting the video online?
We will discuss that at that has been our plan. We will discuss that further at our Pillars meeting tomorrow. Is there any particular reason why you wanted to know, or just?
Oh, I just know that people would want to be educated, and you know that people will look for it. That's the only reason.
Absolutely, yeah. We will most likely do that. We'll discuss it in our Pillars meeting tomorrow. Thank you. But Ms. Sneed, is she on?
I don't think so, Pastor. I think she's gone.
Okay. But Pat, did you want to, I thought she was on, so I was going to have her speak for herself, but did you want to say anything else?
She, along with Mary Howell, had a very, very successful practice in the city, taking people who've been abused by police. And she was also a law professor, I think at Loyola, but maybe we can have her on for another
Absolutely.
time.
Absolutely. So we're going to go, thank you, Pat. We're going to go ahead and close now. And just so that everybody knows, Justice and Beyond does not endorse any particular candidate. We just want to be a platform so that you can be educated when you go to the polls, especially in the interest of brown and black people. We want to always make sure that their voices are amplified and that we work always towards being anti-racist and breaking down systems that continue to oppress people. So just know that we give this platform for every candidate to have their time and do not endorse any particular candidate. So with that said, I want to ask if there are any announcements before we close in prayer.
Yeah, real quick, Rev. I know a lot of us already know this, but it bears repeating. Early voting was extended. October 16th is when early voting starts now. So everybody make sure you're registered and get out there and vote, and tell everybody you know to get out there and vote.
Thank you, Ben. I echo that. Anyone else? Any announcements?
Yes, Pastor.
Yes.
The
You're on mute. Unmute yourself.
I just got calls Friday that the Secretary of State may be holding up our ballots, the mail-in ballots that go out to the parish registrars. So that is a matter that should be discussed in our meeting tomorrow.
Okay, absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up, Pat. We'll certainly discuss it at the Pillars meeting. Thank you, Pat. Any other announcements before we close about any current events that are happening that we need to be aware of?
I think we might want to introduce ourselves now if we can.
How many people we got on the line, Ben or Myron?
27.
27.
Okay, listen, we're going to introduce ourselves. We've been going back and forth whether we're going to do that or not. It is, we've got 15 minutes till 7. So we're going to introduce ourselves. We need to do it real quickly. Just say your name and what organization that you are representing. Ben, if you'd call on a person and then the next person up.
Sure, I see Arissa.
Hi, y'all. I'm Arissa Aaron with Trinity Church, and I'm a pillar with Justice and Beyond.
And then I see myself. I'm Ben Nugent Peterson. I'm an organizer with Extinction Rebellion New Orleans, a pillar with Justice and Beyond, and an organizer with the Coalition Against Death Alley. And I see Simone Levine.
Simone Levine, Court Wetchnola. Please excuse me as I have to go pick up some lasagna for my kids at the supermarket. So I'm going to get off right away, but I think Arissa wanted to introduce her husband, Richard, who's also a fantastic advocate.
Yes, apologies. Sorry about that, Richard.
That's fine. Richard Sachs, sir, slightly hidden at one time, Justice and Beyond. Thank you.
And then I see Kiva Landrum, but I believe Kiva's on. Thanks for staying on, Kiva. And then I see Brooke.
Okay, Kiva's gone. Brooke Randolph, Justice and Beyond pillar, and many organizations, Holy Cross Neighborhood Associations, what I represent.
Ben Gordon, and then Bethany Boltman.
Ben Gordon with Pax Christi, the National Catholic Peace Organization, Witness for Peace, and also Veterans for Peace, and also Advocates for Louisiana Public Health.
Bethany?
Bethany Boltman, New Orleans Musicians Clinic, and Pillar of Justice and Beyond.
Pat, and then Robert Sullivan.
Hi, everybody. This was a great forum. Pat Bryant.
I'm Robert Sullivan. I agree, it was a great forum. I'm with the First Unitarian Church and with the Greater New Orleans Interfaith Climate Coalition, and I have a real quick question. I'm one of the people that has applied for the mail-in ballot, and my wife and I are concerned about COVID, and we have been dealing with the state, and we're told that they might be mailed this week. They might be mailed. So thank you for bringing that up, Pat.
We'll discuss that. And Robert, you're always welcome to be on that Pillars meeting too, if you want to join us tomorrow at noon, if you're available.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Robert. Who's next?
See Ann Meyer, and then Sylvia McKenzie.
Go ahead, Ann.
Hi, I'm Ann Meyer. I will represent myself as part of the Lower Ninth Watch, who is having a night out against crime on October 6th, and a member of the Lower Ninth Voters Coalition, who will be providing voter registration and also assistance with response to the 2020 census on that evening.
All All right, thank you, Sylvia, and everyone, and please just give us real short.
Sylvia McKenzie, Justice and Beyond, Rosedale, CADA, and Louisiana League of Smart Voters too.
If that's what you call short. Let's move on. Next.
I see Laura Paul and then Myron.
Laura Paul, lower9.org.
Thank you, Laura.
Byron Miller.
Thank you, Byron.
Valerie Jefferson and then Jacques Morial.
Valerie Jefferson. Hey, y'all.
Hey, Valerie.
Jacques Morial, charter member of Justice and Beyond 8 years ago. And thank you all for hosting this forum this evening.
Jacques, it's good to see you back.
Good to see you all.
Alice Solomon and Sabrina Mays.
Yes, I'm here.
Who do you have next, Ms. Mays?
That's right, Sabrina Mays.
You say hello, Sabrina? All right. Next, Ben.
Next up is Beth Butler, and then a number that ends in 8520.
Hey y'all, Beth Butler, a community voice and Justice and Beyond pillar, and thanks so much for a great forum tonight.
Number ending in 8520.
Do I have a telephone number ending in 8520?
That may be the president of my area. She may be muted. That's Linda Williams.
Let's move on, Ben.
That's it.
All right, very good. Everybody, thank you for sticking around. We're going to close in prayer. Y'all, just be safe, be kind, be loving, be compassionate, everybody, and continue to use your platform to dismantle any systems of systemic racism and fight for justice. Let's close in prayer. Let's see. Pat Bryant, would you close us in prayer? Hey, Pat. Oh, go ahead.
Dear Heavenly Father, Mother, the one who put all of this together, creator of all things, we thank you for everything that you have done for us. We thank you for those things which have made us better people. We thank you for the challenges in our lives, and we thank you for the vision to travel down the road ahead. Give us the courage, give us the strength, give us the fortitude to fight our battles and to win. Help us to love one another, help us to work together, work together, work together. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much,
Amen.
Pat. Hey, everybody,
Good
thank
night,
y'all so much.
everybody.
We'll see you next week. Be
Good
safe.
night, y'all.
Take
Good
care.
night, everybody. Good night.
Good night.